Hey, this is Chantal from Online Business Marketing, and today we are going to be talking about the difference between freelancers and virtual assistants, what the pros are, the cons are, and how you can go about choosing the right fit. In all my businesses over all the years, I have done both and have failed and succeeded, both miserably and happily. So I'm going to share with you today when is the best time to use those freelancers and those virtual assistants and how you can go about finding them. So while freelancers may give you the flexibility and they may also have specific project skills, a dedicated virtual assistant can actually grow with your business. And I think that this is something over time I possibly was avoiding in the early stages. I was going, you know what? Um, I will rather just get a freelancer to do this job, to do that job, to do this job. But every single time I had to explain to them my business, my tone, give them access to stuff. And it was never done quite to the way in which I wanted it to be done. And in the long term, it was actually costing me a lot of money, but also it was actually stopping me from growing my business because once I started getting dedicated virtual assistants to actually be team members for my business, although I had to put a little bit of work in at the beginning, I can tell you right now that my business has absolutely thrived and scaled since doing so with virtual assistants, my own personal full-time virtual assistants. It's unbelievable how it's made a difference. But there is a place for freelancers, so I'm more than happy to share with you today how to do that. But the whole purpose of a virtual assistant is that they will grow with your business. They can actually start to learn and understand your brand voice. They'll start to create systems within inside your business and they'll provide consistent implementation. And I think that that's really, really important to know. So today, I'm going to go over all of this as well as highlight some of the new laws inside Australia, which are making it more paramount now for us to actually look at going through agencies. Previously, I used to hire my virtual assistants myself. I just used to go and look for them in Facebook groups, and many of them would actually just reach out to me, and I'd interview them. And it was a nightmare, nightmare actually. I had so many time wasters, and it was quite a hectic process. But I did end up coming up with a process that did work in the end. However, with the new laws and the legislation in Australia right now, it's not particularly a safe or viable thing for you to do to personally go out and reach and get virtual assistants because they can actually be treated as a subcontractor now, as according to Australian law. And a Filipino virtual assistant last year actually won a court case and had to be paid out in holiday wages and everything else because she was getting underpaid. So now with the legislations, I personally, because I've got a reputable business that I want to scale and I want to run it like professionally. Now, what I do now is I just go through agencies because that way they're the ones that are dealing with all the legal implementations. I'm paying Australian fees, so it just works out a bit better for me. So why the choice matters? Well, small to medium businesses are outsourcing more than ever. According to Deloitte's global outsourcing survey, over 70% of businesses outsource to reduce costs while also gaining access to expertise and freeing up time for strategy. I think this is important to note. The more that you have got implementers, which are your virtual assistants, the more time you have to spend doing strategy. I think that's really important to note. So in Australia, the virtual assistant market is booming, especially in marketing, where implementation work can consume 20 hours a week. So it really grates my grain when I go into Facebook groups and I see people going, I want a virtual assistant to run my marketing for 5 to 10 hours a week. I can tell you right now that a virtual assistant running a small business, 20 hours a week is the minimum that they would do, which is a half day. So you're looking at a 20-hour virtual assistant, which will be able to support your business across 6 of the different key areas. So that is partnership marketing, lead generation, website development, social media, email marketing, and Google as well. And that includes all the data collection, looking at automation systems, writing SOPs. They can continually grow inside the business to do that entire role, and that is 20 hours a week minimum for a small business. A lot of my clients also are bigger businesses now, so they also they have to have 40-hour virtual assistants instead. But here's the catch. It's not all outsourcing is equal. As I said, going and getting freelancers to do this and to do that and outsourcing to agencies, what they do is they highly, well, not even highly, but sometimes highly moderately skilled in one particular area. So they're only really good at that one area. So when they go into your business, they just do that one thing. So for example, if you wanted like website changes to be made, they'll go and make those website changes, but they don't have a whole holistic view of your entire business and your marketing strategy and your plan. And this is where your own personal VA ingrained into your business who can grow with you can really make a massive difference in your marketing as you continue to grow and scale. So what is a freelancer? So freelancers are independent contractors and they work with multiple clients. This is really important to know. The amount of times I've seen freelancers take, for an example, an accountant strategy and apply it to a veterinarian strategy when they're two completely different things, or they're using the same templates, so they're using the same sort of funnels, whereas the industries are completely different, the avatars completely different. So it's really important to know that. And usually they work on a project base. So popular freelancer platforms include Fiverr, freelancer.com, Upwork, or People Per Hour. And you might hire a freelancer for a one-off logo design or a website build, or please, I hope you don't do this, but for website ads. But their value lies in specialist task-based tasks. So my advice to you is that when you are hiring them, only get ones that have got lots and lots of reviews and have been on the platform for a very long time. And have a look at some of their previous work or even test them with a small project. The amount of money that I've thrown out to freelancers for shoddy work is absolutely insane. The thing that you might like about it is the fact that there's flexibility, so it's easy to engage them short term without the ongoing commitment. But as I said, in the long term, it is going to cost you money rather than spending that time really ingraining one virtual assistant to do everything inside your business. So some of the things to be mindful of when hiring a freelancer: they are juggling multiple businesses, which can dilute their focus. They often have a cookie cutter approach, so they're applying the same strategy across all different industries. Ghosting risk, and I'm just sharing with you what I hear all the time, but if you have a look in Facebook groups, often you hear about how freelancers have ghosted or disappeared people mid-project or not finished something or haven't given them full access to something. The amount of freelancers that have set up, for example, Facebook pages under their own name and then given the business owner admin rights, but they don't actually own that account. Countless times it's happened, and it's happened through big website development companies as well, unfortunately. So we get to see all this stuff, right? It's a higher cost per time, as I mentioned. Data exposure. So you've got to give your freelancers access to all your private logins and systems, and you don't really know, where they are or how to get in touch with them, or if there was an issue, what were you going to do? But if you had your own virtual assistant, there's ways for you to manage that and keep them more accountable. And they're just not across your entire business. I think this is really important. So they deliver in isolation, and marketing is really disjointed. It's not part of a holistic full plan, which you can really do if you've got a VA and a strategy. So what is a virtual assistant? Well, a VA is a dedicated implementer who works with your business long term. Now, it is important for you to note that if you do get a 20-hour virtual assistant, the chances are that they might have another client and be working the additional 20 hours elsewhere. So it's up to you whether or not you'd rather have that virtual assistant 40 hours. There are pros and cons to that. Sometimes you may need two different skill sets, so you might go with two different 20-hour VAs. It also means that if one is off sick, at least you've got one working. Whereas if you've got a really good one and you want to keep that one and you don't want them to go elsewhere, then you might choose to have them for 40 hours. But yeah, if they do get sick or take holidays, then you've obviously a man down as well. So there's a couple of pros and cons to think about for that. But virtual assistants, if you do get them through an agency, they're obviously better managed, and obviously you can also, they're invested in your success and they will stay with you, hopefully, if you treat them well. And you don't try and break them. We always say don't break your VAs, right? So a marketing VA is, as I said, they're a powerhouse. They can go across all your day-to-day operations. Obviously, I specialize in virtual assistants to fulfill the marketing role. We have a marketing implementation framework that we use where we basically come up with what their job role is going to be, then define the tasks across those 6 different areas so that every day they know what they're going to do if they're a 20-hour VA, what they're going to do for 4 hours every single day. And we make sure that they're skilled in the allocation of all those different tasks as well. So the pros of hiring a marketing VA is, well, they're going to grow with your business. They're going to learn your brand, your voice, your values, your goals. You'll get into a nice working rhythm with them. There's consistency in your messaging. There's consistency in across all your channels as well. And they've got a whole vision of the entire sort of strategy that you have. They can also build systems and can document SOPs, which is so important. So they can start creating repeatable processes. So if your virtual assistant did go, you now have an SOP for that. Many freelancers are not going to do that for you. They're not going to give you the actual system or the process that they used. Which means if ever you've got to go edit it or change it or do something to it, the unfortunate thing is you may not be able to do it. You may not even have access to it. But having your virtual assistants means they can now buy those SOPs. And if ever you're going to sell your business, you can sell your business if you have SOPs. You can sell it for a lot more if you've got SOPs. So data security, obviously, they act as part of your team. So it's a lot safer, especially if you're going through an agency again, there's all that protection. And there's those accountability as well, because they're ongoing, going to be looking at reports, going to be looking at metrics and keeping you informed, which is super important. And they're also happy to train in their role. So if you go to a freelancer and they're not good in a specific area, they're not going to tell you because they want your money. And the unfortunate thing is that they're probably not going to want to go do training. They'll just half-ass it. Whereas virtual assistants that are inside your business, many of my VAs, when they first start with me, if they're a 20-hour VA, they might be doing 5 to 10 hours of training in their first or second week to make sure that they have better skills in the management of what they're doing. And let me say this, they may come from an agency and they may be skilled and they may have experience, and that's how we recruit them. But for me, I still want them to get better training in those particular things if I want them working for me. So as I said, training is really important. They're happy to do it. If you've got an agency, the agency will also support them in the recruiting of it. Now, there is an ongoing cost, obviously. So there might be a recruitment cost, there might be an ongoing cost, but it is far more affordable than hiring an in-house staff. So what you're hearing is the dog's ball in the background. I do apologize. But there are a lot. So for example, if you just as a bottom figure, if you've got 70,000 Australian dollars a year for an in-house marketing person, a virtual assistant is going to cost you 1,500 on average, $1,500 Australian dollars a month, plus a recruitment fee, which is probably about around the same amount, depending on which agency you go with. And there are 4 different agencies that there's 4 different agencies that I actually refer to, depending on the type of close the door, hopefully you don't hear them, depending on the type of virtual assistant that you need or the type of skills that you need, and also the culture within the agency and the amount of contact or support you need with an agency. I can refer you to different agencies as well for your virtual assistants. I can also help you in the onboarding process. So job role, recruiting, bring them in, and then ingraining them into your business and coming up with an overall marketing strategy and plan, giving them their tasks to do so they can continue to set up. So you know how you might think about, oh, I've got that funnel to create, or I've got this to create. Well, we just add it all to their task list, but now they've got a whole vision of what we're actually trying to accomplish for that business. And when you hire through an Australian company, you're paying Australian dollars, not fluctuating US dollars as well. So with freelancers, as I said, you've just got to be mindful of jobs being done halfway, ghosting, which we hear about all the time. There's a higher cost of time. So they might charge you like $500 for a job, whereas a virtual assistant might actually, it would be part of their hours and what they would do, and you'd actually probably get more out of them. And then, as I said, the lack of business context is really important. So a VA really is, long-term is really good. And I think it really is important because they are now going to be doing reporting. They're going to be making strategic decisions. They're going to be optimizing and auditing what you're doing. They're going to be looking for new and better ways to improve things, whereas freelancers are never going to have that exposure into your business. And then, of course, if you bring in someone like myself who does the strategy and the implementation plan, plus the onboarding and the recruiting, you literally have a marketing unicorn inside your business. Not only that, but the virtual assistants are loyal and they're invested in your business. So for the last 2 years, I've been flying to the Philippines and then flying my Filipino virtual assistants to meet me in Cebu and then once in Dumaguete, and just doing some team building. And now they've also been set goals and targets in the business. And if they reach those goals and targets, if the business collectively reaches it, I'll then be flying them to Australia as well. So they are ingrained in your business and they don't want to go anywhere, which is amazing. So let's just talk about that new legislation. So the new legislation in Australia really matters because in 2023, and I think it was 2023, a landmark Brisbane case saw a Filipino VA successfully claim employment entitlements, which set a new precedent. That means that Australian businesses must now be careful when they're hiring offshore offshore virtual assistants. So the offshore virtual assistants, if there's no contracts in place, and you are paying them $10 an hour, and they can actually come back at you, and they may actually claim employment entitlements as well. So, but by working through an Australian agency, it can protect you by ensuring compliance with fair work legislation, providing contracts, payroll, and HR support, reducing the risk of legal disputes or claims, and offering a safeguard for both the business and the virtual assistant. And as I said, this is what I do now. I just go with agencies. It's just easier for me. So how do you find the right fit? Well, if you need a freelancer, as I've mentioned before, you can use platforms like Fiverr, freelancer.com, or Upwork. Check for the 5-star rating and reviews. Always request some sample work, and always start with a small test project before committing to anything bigger. If you need a VA, we recommend that you hire through a trusted Australian agency for compliance and security. I can connect you to South African and Filipino virtual assistants based on what you need through 4 different agencies that I work with, and I can support you in that role. Just to give you an indication, I've had a couple of clients that have gone and got their virtual assistants first, bought the virtual assistant, got a strategy from me, and then when we start working together, we've identified that the virtual assistant didn't have the baseline key foundational skills that we needed in order to be able to execute the marketing strategy. So it is important that the business owner is very clear on what their job role is. And sometimes you don't really know what it is because you're not a marketer, right? But if you're not clear on what that role is, and you don't know that you need a funnel expert, or if you don't know that you need them to be able to do Google Analytics, and you hire the wrong person, or you hire the person with the wrong attitude, because attitude is really important, because you can train skill, but you cannot train attitude. So I've also had another case where I've had a person hire somebody because they were bubbly, they were friendly, they were lovely, and she just loved this girl completely. And it turned out that the person was the wrong fit for the job and just couldn't own that marketing role. So really important to know. So you want to look for marketing VAs who are also showing willingness to upskill. So they need to want to take direction, want to learn, can work autonomously, can time manage, not multitask, and not have contact with you every day. The way that I put a framework in place is that you're only meeting with them twice a week, 3 times a week when you first start, and twice a week as you move forward. And then we put a project management system and communication channel in place so that you don't have this ongoing back and forth through WhatsApp and emails as well. We want them to be able to own the role and to be able to work autonomously. And then you want, as I said, you want to be able to build a relationship with as part of that team. So educate some tips before you hire. Make sure that you have clarity in the role. Decide if you need a project specialist or whether or not you need a consistent implementer. If you're going to consistently need your marketing implemented, it is better for you to go down the VA role and stop going and getting agencies and freelancers to band-aid everything together. It is better that you just bite the bullet, get a virtual assistant inside your business, get them up to managing and owning that role. And then freeing you up to be able to do the strategy and the other more high-level tasks that the business owner should be doing. Making sure that you always protect your data when you do bring them on board. So use things like LastPass, and invest in a strategy. So very, very important. Freelancers and virtual assistants are not strategists. They are not end-to-end marketing strategists. They may have skills, they may have expertise, they may have some baseline knowledge of how to do things, and they may even be enthusiastic, but they are not an end-to-end marketing strategist who can come up with multiple lead generation funnels, come up with content plans. They will do the best that they can because they are willing, but they are not overall strategists. So invest in a strategy that you can give to your virtual assistant to follow. Unfortunately, I think if you had a strategy and you gave it to the freelancer, freelancers may choose to actually work or go with their own skill set or how they manage things. So if you're wanting sustainable growth, I think you need to look at a virtual assistant. If you've hired, fired, rehired, and fired again, you probably are my ideal client, because most of the people that I work with have done that and realized that it is time to bite the bullet now, get a strategy and get a virtual assistant in, so that they can own that role. And as I said, make sure that right from the beginning, you just say, create a SOP, create a SOP, create a SOP. You want them documenting every single process so that if it doesn't work out, you can then pass it on to someone else. And let me say this, make sure that when they document any processes, that it's documented in your files, not theirs. Because if ever they do leave, you don't want them to be owning the files. You need to be owning the files. So as I said, I've trained over 1,000 virtual assistants now, and that's probably in the last 3 years because there's been an absolute massive push towards virtual assistants and offshore hiring. In saying that, I also work with in-house marketing managers as well. Many in-house marketing managers across the whole of Australia, and in fact, I've got a couple of clients in New Zealand as well. I'm helping them train for example, a hotel train one of the receptionists to do the marketing. A hairdresser training one of the hairdressing interns to manage the marketing. Personal trainer training one of their clients to actually become the marketing manager. So there's a lot of this sort of stuff that's happening at the moment where they go, right, we want to train an in-house person in the marketing, but they don't have the strategy. The owner doesn't know how to give it to them. And the person is willing to do it, but they don't quite know what to do. So just so you know, we get about 50% more out of our virtual assistants once we've got a strategy and implementation plan and we give them the training. So if this is something you're interested, whether or not you're interested in the strategy or whether or not you're interested in the virtual assistant, please just choose a time to chat with us. And more than happy to support you with that. If you just want to send me an email, which is chantel@onlinebusinessmarketing.com.au. If you just send me that email or contact me through the comments below, I can just connect you with a VA agency. If you just want to do it on your own and go to a VA agency, just tell me a little bit about what you're looking for and I'll point you in the right direction. Alternatively, if you're going, you know what? I'm ready to scale, I'm ready to grow, I'm ready to have my own in-house marketing unicorn. I want the strategy, I want the implementation plan, and I want the support, then choose a time to chat. So this has been Chantal Gerardy from Online Business Marketing. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, in order to be part of the live audience, you do need to be part of our paying customers. And just so you know what our paying customers get, today, I actually just launched an Ask-Chantel AI GPT, which basically has my entire knowledge base. So basically you can ask any marketing question across all of the six areas of marketing, including mindset, automation, and delegation. And my Ask Chantal AI GPT will answer all those questions for you and give you the direct links to the resources. So that's just one of the bonuses of working with a hand-holding marketing consultant like myself. So once again, this is Chantal Gerardy from Online Business Marketing, and I'll see you again